Okay, so previously we were looking at the relationship between the loan to value ratio and the debt to income ratio. So this is the debt, the cost of the debt servicing to income. And again, it would appear for the credit score, we've broken this, how did we generate this graph? We use the old dataset. We filtered out the debt to income ratio that was in excess of 1, and then we applied the ggplot syntax and we created a scatter graph where on the x-axis we had loan to value ratio and on the y-axis we had debt to income, and then we color coded to reflect no, meaning mortgage was approved, and yes, meaning mortgage was denied. And then we splintered out or splintered out each of the applicants by their credit score. So we had 6 credit scores. The bulk of credit scores were 1. That's the highest rating. And when we observe here, and we also have, of course, the a trend, which is not, again, in this instance, can be useful sometimes. We do have some evidence suggest that the higher the loan to value ratio, the higher the debt to income ratio. I suppose that's sort of logical. The more indebted you become, the higher the expense of servicing that debt. So we have observed that, but it's kind of marginal. And then for these outliers, then it's a little bit corrupted, that trend. So we probably don't want to observe this too much. But we do, when looking at the loan to value ratio, most of the loans don't exceed the value of the property. Again, most applicants, when they apply, don't try to take out a loan that exceeds the value of the property. That just makes sense. But also from the bank's perspective, the bank does not want to lend sums of money in excess of the collateral, which is the property. Right? So if the value is higher, if the value is lower than the loan, then the collateral is relatively poor and the banks run higher credit risk. Okay, so we can observe a sort of a cutoff point. Once we go in excess of 1, there aren't that many loans. There's not that many applicants trying to apply for loans in excess of the value of the loan, right? Okay. In addition, for credit score 1, then we probably could cut off here above the 0.3 mark. There's more blue. The higher the debt to income, the more blue denotes mortgage denied. So we can kind of observe that. We somehow observe it here. It's less evident in the other graphs. Then the credit score perhaps is kicking in harder and having a bigger effect. Also for the lower credit score, perhaps the loan to value is having a much more significant impact. So if the credit score is 2 or higher, there's more mortgages being denied at lower levels of loan to value ratios. Again, these are not stark, clear-cut patterns. These are purely from eyeballing, right? And that's purely what we're doing here. We're applying an exploratory data analysis. Okay, so we could look at this again and just look purely at the loan to value less than 1. Okay, so it's the same graph again, except we've excluded the outliers, right? It's just in the filtering that we've, in addition to DIR less than 1, we now have LVR less than 1. And again, perhaps it's clearer, the patterns. If we take the correlation between the debt to income ratio and the loan to value ratio, it appears to be positive, but not that much greater than 0. Okay. Okay, we can look then at a box plot, which kind of gives us a sense of the distribution of the deny and denied mortgages that were denied, the mortgages that were approved, and then the DIR. Nothing much there. We can say perhaps that the DIR is lower, a little bit lower. The median is a little bit lower than the DIR for the mortgages that were denied, and there is more outliers perhaps, or more extreme outliers for those who were denied. We can tease that out then for the separate credit scores. Again, perhaps because we have this extreme value here, it's meaning the rest of the graph is being compressed. If we excluded that by saying DIR less than 2, perhaps we could make more sense out of our graphs. Okay, so we eliminated the most extreme case. And perhaps a pattern that emerges here in terms of DIR and mortgage being denied or being approved is those with higher DIR, or if we look at those individuals who were denied their mortgage, on the whole the median DIR was higher than the median DIR for those who were approved. That's just a basic trend. It's a bit lower than this one, it's a bit lower here than this one, a bit lower here for this one, noting that this is no, meaning the mortgage was approved, yes, meaning the mortgage was denied. Okay, so DIR seems to be relevant, right? We could do the same, but this time for LVR. And again, have we excluded? Okay, LVR less than 2, so we've excluded some of the more extreme cases. And again, those who, the typical or the median value for LVR for those who were approved is lower than those who were denied. Okay, so the median LVR here is lower than this one. The median LVR, loan to value ratio, is lower than for those who were denied. In each instance, that would seem to be true. We could do that then and say, okay, well, what about people who are self-employed? Maybe self-employed people are treated differently. Now, before we noticed that self-employed didn't militate against getting a mortgage, but one thing we do observe here is where we have blue meaning yes, self-employed, red meaning no, being employed, being an employee, somebody else. Those who have, who are self-employed and who are denied mortgages, their LVR. Okay, so let's look at this again. Those who were approved their mortgages, this is for self-employed, blue, and being an employed somebody else is red. The LVR is lower. And again, the LVR is lower for those who were approved, and the LVR is lower. Typical median LVR slightly lower for those who are self-employed. Again, here when your credit score is 6, LVR is way lower than for those who are approved. LVR is lower for the self-employed. LVR marginally lower for those who are self-employed. Right. So perhaps a self-employed individual, perhaps how we could read this is self-employed individuals can get their mortgage approved, no issues, but typically the LVR is lower. That means the bank is taking somewhat financially quite prudent approach with people who are self-employed. Self-employed people, their earnings perhaps are more variable than somebody who's employed. Okay, and we could do the same, but this time let's do it for, instead of for self-employed, let's do it for African Americans. Split apart two groups, American and African American. So let's run. So it's the same analysis, but we're splintering out. And interestingly, this time, if you're African American and you're approved, typically your LVR is higher than to the rest of the population. That's for credit score 1. It's true for credit score 2. Again, if you're coming and getting your mortgage approved, the LVR is typically higher. Not in this case. It's true here, and here. Marginally higher than for the rest of the population. So if you're African American, yes, and your mortgage has been approved, if we just look at those who got their mortgage approved, interestingly, for African Americans, the LVR could be higher, although for self-employed people, it seemed to be lower. Okay. Okay, let's do a pivot table then quite quickly, and let's view it. And we're looking at those who were denied mortgage. No, their their median LVR was lower than those who were denied. So those who were not denied mortgage, 2,995. It's 2,095. Those who got their mortgage approved, typically their median LVR was lower than those whose mortgage was denied, 0.82. Okay, so let's do another plot. Plot 2, pivot 2, and we're going to look at the median LVR, and this time deny and DMI is denied mortgage insurance. So if you were accepted, no, denied means accepted, and no, you got your mortgage insurance, typically their LVR was lower. They're more numerous. If you got your mortgage approved, and it's quite rare, but were denied mortgage insurance, LVR was a bit higher, quite a bit higher, and it's only 4 there, right? And if we look at using this pivot table the way it's set up, here we arrange by deny and denied mortgage insurance. If your mortgage was denied, but you were approved for mortgage insurance, the median LVR here is 0.8. There's 241 cases there, so not that insignificant. And then for those who were denied both their mortgage and insurance, there's 44 there. They typically had a higher median LVR. Okay, so LVR seems to be important here. Now we can in some respects, some of this analysis that we've looked at here it's useful if we've applied this tidyverse analysis, this exploratory data analysis, and then run a C-tree, and then graph the C-tree and zoom in here for a moment. And again, that analysis is as before. By virtue of having done the exploratory data analysis, we can see, yes, DIR seems to be important, a credit score seems to be important, LVR seems to be quite important, denied mortgage insurance seems to be quite important. And so what's coming out in terms of the exploratory data analysis we can relate here. However, the graph that we've generated here makes more sense once we've looked at the exploratory data, right, analysis. Some of the trends that we observe, we see reappear here. What's nice about the C-tree is that it unifies that analysis. And so to give some kind of expression and to understand the C-tree, it makes sense to have done the exploratory data analysis. But likewise, the exploratory data analysis is nicely unified in the C-tree. If we go back to the exploratory data analysis, we can kind of see where the cutoff points are coming from. It's not that revealing up close, but then when we combine it with the C-tree, the exploratory data analysis offers us some very rich insights. Again, for the loan-to-value ratio, we examined that. We saw that in terms of the red and the blue when the mortgages were approved. And we have some sense where that comes out of.